everyone, it's Holly, and I wanted to do a video talking about gateway romance books, by which I mean making recommendations for books that maybe if you're new to the romance genre, or you know, you're kind of interested, you're not sure where you should start. I feel like these might be good places. I have a lot of book recommendation videos on my channel. I've even done a similar video before. There may be some duplicates. I don't know. I guess that means I like double recommend them. Yeah. So I have 5 contemporary romances and 5 historical romances. I think those are the 2 biggest romance subgenres. So I wanted to do some in both of them. They're also the ones I read the most. I probably read more historical than contemporary. So let's talk about contemporary recommendations first. So the first one, which I am sure I have recommended in the past, is The Hating Game by Sally Thorne. I recommend this one because it's a very easy, quick, approachable read. It doesn't require a lot of thought. I think most contemporary is probably more approachable than most historical. It reads a lot like a rom-com movie in a lot of ways. I think it's popular for a reason, and I think it's not too steamy, which I'm sure some people want more steam, but a lot of times when I'm recommending, I feel like I want to go a little lighter to try and like ease people into that, you know? But it's still there. It has fun characters and everything. I think it's a good introduction piece to the genre. It is told in first person. I think the romancy elements could maybe be a teensy bit stronger. It leans a little chick lit, but is definitely still a romance novel. So I think if you read a lot of like women's fiction, chick lit, if you watch rom-coms and you like that, but you've just never seen yourself as a romance reader, I think this is one that you might enjoy. I know there's a movie. I have not seen it, so no comment on that. Next is Good Boy by Sarina Bowen and Elle Kennedy, which I feel like might be a weird recommendation, but I really wanted to do a Sarina Bowen recommendation, and I just feel like a lot of her books might be a little heavy as an intro read, but Good Boy is ridiculous. I think it's a good example of a hockey romance, like a sports romance, which is great. It's funny. It's definitely light, but it has some serious moments. And I think it can help you determine what kind of style you want in your romances, because this is definitely a little bit over the top in the characters. And so it can help introduce you to that. Is that something you really like, or is it something you don't? I personally love Blake. Blakey, we love you. Is more of an author, and I was trying to figure out which book was the right one to pick, and I haven't read a lot of her newer books, and so I went with Ugly Love by Colleen Hoover. I think Colleen Hoover might be a good entry author. I think she writes very addictive writing, which I think is good if you're trying to like hook somebody into the genre. Are her books problematic? Yeah, a lot of times they are, but whatever. I'm not here for a moral lesson. I'm here to be entertained. If it wasn't Ugly Love, I would probably say Confess. I think like It Ends With Us, Hopeless, well, all good books, are perhaps a tad heavy for an introduction read. Ugly Love is also heavy, but I think in a different way. I think maybe someday the fact that there's basically cheating in that could push people away, but I think Ugly Love and Confess kind of have that like good balance and have a good angsty read, which a lot of people enjoy. And I watch, their names are Megan and Sierra. They're from the channel TC2, but they've been reading a lot more romance lately, and they've been reading a lot of Colleen Hoover, and I think Ugly Love might have been their first Colleen Hoover, and that kind of pushed me in that direction. Is The Kiss Quotient by Helen Hoang. While this is not my favorite book, I like The Bride Test a lot though. I think it is a great introductory read. It's definitely a lot steamier than I thought it was going to be based on the cover, and kind of, it felt like they were kind of marketing it towards an audience that wasn't a traditional romance reading audience. And so I was kind of surprised by the level of sex. Not in a bad way, just surprised that it was there. But I think it's a good introduction. It has interesting characters. I think she does write a good story. Well, this wasn't my favorite. That's just a personal preference thing. But I think, again, if you are interested in like more contemporary fiction, is something you might find appealing. She also does have diverse characters in a variety of ways, and so if that's something that you're looking for or you want to be seen in a book that you're reading, that's a good place to go as well. And then the last one is, you can get it as an ebook, I believe, but I got it as an audio because it's an Audible original, and that is Sweet Talk by Cara Bastone, because I'm obsessed with Cara Bastone. Like, her 2 Audible originals are amazing, and I do recommend listening to the audiobooks. These definitely read like a chick flick. They're short, they are snappy, they are very dialogue heavy. There is no sexy times here, so if that's something you're actually trying to avoid, this could be a good place to go. There is romance like that. You can read inspirational romances. There are romances with closed door scenes. So romance does not necessarily equal sex, even though a lot of times it does. It does not necessarily mean that. But this one, I think it was so, like, sweet is like the perfect term for it. It was adorable. It was funny. It has great banter, and I love banter and romance, and I think a lot of people do. And so I think if you like banter, romance could be the genre for you. And if you want to figure out if you like banter, this could be a good place for you to start. Next is historical romances. And the first one is The Madness of Lord Ian McKenzie by Jennifer Ashley. Because 1, I love it. 2, it's an incredibly popular novel. And so I feel like the fact that it is so popular, like, it has something there. It's the start of a series, which I think is a great way to get started. And it is historical, but I don't think you need to know a ton about like historical setting or anything. I've talked a little bit in past videos about maybe some terms or words that might be good to know about historicals, but I don't think you need any of that backstory for this. Ian, it's historical, so you don't, like, obviously there's no diagnosis, but he is clearly on the spectrum in some way. And so I think a lot of people maybe in today's world would be interested in reading something like that. And you can see how something like that was treated in the past, but you know you're going to get a happily ever after. There are great family dynamics here. I'm not saying that they're like always the most positive, but lots of family dynamics. And you have an older heroine, which I think sometimes when people think of romances, they think of like young 18-year-old girls, and that kind of like pushes them off, which I see, I get it, same. But you have an older heroine here as well, and it's a very smart novel, I feel like. Next is, I think it's called What Happens in London. I meant to look this up. It's one of Julia Quinn's books. I didn't want to do the Bridgerton books because, I don't know, I feel weird starting in the middle of a series, even though technically I'm doing that here too. And I just can't bring myself to recommend Anna and the Duke because I really hate something that happens in that book. Or is that what it's called? The Duke and I always call it Anna and the Duke. That is totally an Avon True Romance book. The Duke and I. But I feel like Julia Quinn is a really good introductory reader. Her books tend to be very easily consumable, which I think is great. I think this one is fun. It's definitely lower on the steam side, so if that's something you care about, or maybe are worried about, this could be a good way to start. There's like a slight mystery element here. It's nothing too dark. Well, I mean, it's like about murder, but it comes across as kind of like a kind of campy mystery, is kind of how I would describe it. I think it's very fun. I think it's a great example of really good quality Julia Quinn writing. It's not heavy on the angsty side. Again, it's easily consumed. I can't do a historical romance recommendation and not include Tessa Dare. And I would recommend starting with the Duchess Deal. While I love Tessa Dare and basically feel like you can't go wrong, I think the Duchess Deal is very popular, and it's popular for a reason. I think you could start with pretty much any of her series. I actually think like Castles Ever After is a very good series as well, but I think the Duchess Deal is a very good place to start. Again, it's a series. You immediately get connected with the main heroine. There is a friend group. Tessa Dare does really good female friendships. If that's something that you're looking for in your books, she does a very good job of it. I'm not going to recommend any of her books, but Sarah MacLean I feel like does as well. And the Duchess Deal is kind of like The Hating Game, where it's a very popular book. There's a reason. It's a good place to start. I wanted to do an American set historical, but I don't read a lot of them. So I went with An Extraordinary Union by Alyssa Cole. I know Beverly Jenkins is a goddess, 100%. We love Miss Bev for sure. But I've only read 2 books by her because I've now read An Avon True Romance by her. And I didn't love her historic romance, so I just feel like I can't recommend a book for her, but I'm sure she is a good place to start. I mean, there's a reason she's like a queen in the genre, okay? But An Extraordinary Union I did really enjoy, and I think this could be a good introduction for people who like just regular historical fiction, because I feel like it was definitely lighter on the romance and heavier on the historical aspects of things. So you'll definitely get a lot of that. It does take place during the Civil War. You have a heroine who is, I think she was born free, but she is undercover as a slave down in the South. And there is a man, and he is also undercover, and he's pretending to be like an evil, like plantation owner, landowner guy. And they are attracted to each other. There's all kinds of stuff. But she is very smart, but she has to like hide so much about herself, and she is exposed to stuff she's never been exposed to before, and she's treated horribly, but she also knows like the other side of things. Like, she knows what it's like to be a free woman, and it's very interesting. I think it's a very interesting setting for a story. It's definitely emotional. It will make you very angry, in my opinion, because it is very real. But again, I think it's a little lighter on the romance, so it could be good for a just traditional historical reader. And the last one, despite the title, does not take place in America and is called My American Duchess. This is by Eloisa James. I actually think Eloisa James is a difficult author to recommend, but I think this might be a good introductory one. It's just a straight standalone historical, which you don't see very often. It's well written, it has interesting characters, it has a good romance, but it's not a big complicated world, it's not anything, and it felt more like a traditional romance. Sometimes Eloisa James plays around with expectations, and I know people don't always love her books. A lot of times the ones people don't like, I do like, so I wouldn't necessarily recommend those just because I think they're going to be more controversial, but I think this one is a little bit more approachable, and this cover is gorgeous. Plus you're going to get a look at like the American British dynamic that shows up in a lot of your historicals, so it'll be a good introduction to that. So those are some gateway romances in my opinion. I have a bunch of videos talking about different book recommendations. If you want to check them out, I have some playlists down in the description box below. If you have any recommendations, you can leave those down in the comments, and I will see you next time. Bye!